What's going on, traders? Andrew O'Connell here with Pristine Capital. Let's dive into these markets. Let's start off with our box scores. Beyond that, we're going to talk about the price action for the day, and we're going to talk about my trades for the day as well. S&P 500 finished up 0.96% on the session after opening up red. The Nasdaq QQQ was up 0.86%. IWM small caps were up a whopping 1.61%. Our Dow Jones was up just 0.83%, and our ARK Innovation ETF, Kathy's ARK, was up 2.97%. I am still long my leaps in ARK. We had a nice volatility crush across the board, and we finished the day with some strong breadth. Finished out the session with 71.4% up volume, and my trend model remains at a +3. Finviz Heat Map, take a look at this. Very noteworthy, of course, the outperformer is energy. And I gotta say, I'm very surprised at how resilient the market is being despite this relative outperformance in energy. You know, the main reason for the big sell-off in stocks was that inflation was going out of control. We got very long of the market about 2 to 3 weeks ago, really as we were hitting the bottom, because we had this thesis that inflation could be peaking. We are still net long the market. I have about 90% long exposure. Noteworthy here as well, Apple was the best performer out of these FANG stocks. We can take a look at the Apple chart very shortly. In terms of sectors, Chinese technology is in our #1 momentum slot now. It was up 4.13% today. Solar energy stocks finished up 1%. That is our #2 momentum slot. And in the #3 slot now is emerging markets, internet, and e-commerce, EMQQ, which is up 2.63%. Our negative performers, we had consumer discretionary slightly negative, blockchain assets slightly negative, and the next gen SPAC ETF also slightly negative. Style factors, small cap value up 1.47%, and the momentum style factor was up 1.61%. Now let's go through the price action and let's talk about what happened this morning, because we actually had a gap lower in the pre-markets. Let's jump over to our S&P 500 and take a look at what happened. In the morning, my trend model had actually flipped to a +1 on the open, and this was the real test. We were opening up, market was moving to the downside, and it was like, hey, now we're trading at this 10-day EMA. We're below this monthly value area high. We're moving towards the low end of this consolidation range we've been in for the last 6 or 7 sessions. Let's see what happens. And check this out on our 5-minute chart, literally right at 9:30. So we hit these lows, and in the pre-market, we were trading right around this 40.75 level. And literally right after the bell goes off, we just see huge volume and buying at 9:30. And then from there, it really just didn't stop. And we moved higher throughout the rest of the day. The main thing is there's a lot of players that are still underexposed to the market. And yeah, they very aggressively bought the dip today. So when you start to see this and things are going wild, like for instance, stocks like AMC, this had a really nice move today, up 9.37%. Look at this, we're out above this monthly point of control, looking pretty solid. And names like the ARK Innovation ETF having a pretty solid performance as well. What this is looking like is there might be some players that have some information that we do not yet have. Look at this, the volatility is really just falling off a cliff as well. The VIX fell to a new low out of this 4-day range. So yeah, the VIX closed out at about 24.02. It has not been that low since April. This really just sprang to life, and that's when we had this big sell-off and washout event. Could we end up getting all the way back down to a 20 handle on the VIX? It is certainly possible. So we'll have to see what happens. We do have the CPI print that is coming out this Friday, and really the question now is, do we rip into that print? It's starting to look like this market just wants to go vertical into the CPI. What I will say is, if we do end up going vertical into the CPI print, I'm much more likely to take some targets on exposures. So let's dive in here. What did I do today? At 9:49, I added to my HPQ common shares for $38.82. I had taken targets and taken profits yesterday into the morning strength. So I was in a position where I could buy into this morning's weakness. So I was able to improve my cost basis, was able to build out my position, And look at HPQ. This is a Warren Buffett name. And we're hopping on the Warren Buffett train. Let's do it. We're long, strong, and willing to be wrong. HPQ opened up, undercut this 10-day EMA. I bought, somewhere around here towards the open. And look at that. We ended up closing out above the monthly value area. So this looks very solid. And I think if the market does have a breakout, this is one of those names that could certainly lead us there. Another name that I just want to point out is Apple. So check this out. Apple, again, this was the best performer out of the FANG stocks. For whatever reason, this just looks a little bit different to me, how we undercut the 20-day simple moving average, then we just bounced really hard off of it. We closed above the high from the prior 2 sessions. And as we start to look at this S&P 500, remember, Apple makes up about 6.5% of the S&P. It really is beginning to look to me, and this is not like a far-fetched claim or call here, it looks like the market wants to test this 50-day simple moving average. So I think if we do test that 50-day, it's likely going to be on the back of Apple and some of these other highly weighted names moving to the upside and perhaps testing this monthly value area high of 153.71. So I'll definitely be watching Apple tomorrow. I believe the small caps actually got out above the 50-day simple moving average. Yeah, look at that. We closed above the 50-day for the small caps. So very interesting as well. Remember, everyone started talking about, everyone and their mother, every shoe shine boy, every Twitter guru is out there saying, oh my gosh, we're in a recession. And at a certain point when it hits that mainstream consciousness, a lot of the big players and the big money, they're actually looking past it. And they're saying, hey, if we are in a recession right now, what does the future look like? If the future looks better than the present, that's where I want to allocate my capital. Typically, the small caps lead as you're coming out of a recession, not going into one. So some very interesting dynamics that we have going on here. What did I do on the options front before we break? Take a look. These Chinese equities, I do have a position in FXI calls that expires in January. And I wanted to add some more exposure. So I sold these KWEB June 17th 30 strike puts for 68 cents. So what'll happen here is if KWEB pulls back to that 30 strike, I'll get to buy some KWEB at a cost base of $29.32. If it does not do that, I get to keep the premium received. And then I also added to these DBC October 21st 28 strike puts for $1.25. This is a counter trend trade. This trade, I believe right now I have on like 12 trades. 11 of them are nice winners. Right now, this is the only losing trade that I have on, very small. But these DBC, these commodities, I believe that if and when they break, given how they're kind of moving in an upwards parabola right now, I think they could have a hard break if and when they do. That about does it for this market recap video. Hope you guys all had an awesome trading session. As always, I will see you all tomorrow. If you're interested in getting the live trade alerts, live analysis, you want to be part of our Discord community, definitely go to pristinecapital.net. Get signed up there. Looking forward to seeing you soon. Have a good one.